Hi, Lisa Schermerhorn here, and this is my show Where Truth Lies. And this is my dear friend Lidia Kuleshnyk. I met her through the movie Zero Limits. She's a star as well, and an extraordinary woman. When you talk about Zero Limits, this is a woman who's not supposed to be here, according to the doctors. She was told at a very young age that she was not going to survive, and yet something inside her caused her to still be here and overcome all of the physical adversities, mental and emotional. She's a proud recipient of the Raneth Media Lifetime Achievement Award. She's a high performance wellness coach and she works with CEOs and high performers. She's also works with horses, which we're going to talk about as well. She's most passionate about empowering conscious leaders to feel secure and confident in knowing that they can turn any crisis situation into success and activate human potential and turn lead into gold, which I love the alchemy of that. There's a lot more on her bio, but I wanted her to tell you. It's much more fun to hear it from you. So Lydia, welcome.
Well, thank you, Lisa. It's a true honor and pleasure to be sharing this time with you and to meet you and all the beautiful stars of Zero Limits movie. And it really feels like a homecoming. You know, we didn't know each other, and
No.
through our work together in Zero Limits movie, we've all become family and expanding, who we are and how we live in the world, which is really the essence of the Zero Limits movie.
No, it's so true. We got a chance to meet in person in at Sacramento at the red carpet, but it did feel like a homecoming. Like everyone connected so beautifully, and then beyond that, we've collaborated on so many things because we have all been through a lot. I mean, that's where our Zero Limits whole philosophy has come from. Because when you've overcome great adversity, you feel like you can pretty much do anything. And yours started out pretty much at birth. So I'd like people to hear your story about what your condition was at birth and what happened.
Yes, well, when we live our life, we don't think it's anything really exceptional because we're just focused on our own survival, on
Right.
figuring things out. And really, when I was very young, I adopted what I now refer to as my zero limits mindset or zero limits declaration. And I said I didn't come on the planet to be half alive. I came on the planet to be whole and free. And there was something within me that had a strong sense of inner knowing, that I was not going to be told by any outside source what I was capable of doing. And I didn't really have a lot of support. We grew up on a farm in Ontario. I was born in 1965, and black and white TV with two or three stations. And I found, you might say, my guidance in our little country schoolhouse. We had a little country school, and literally a book fell off the shelf in that little country school, and it was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And that was when I was 10. So I was born with deformed internal organs and highly medicated from birth and in chronic pain. And my family did the best they could, but without a real clinical diagnosis, then it's harder for people to identify in a way to support you, right? So it's really nobody's fault. But I didn't have a typical label put on, which in a way was liberating, but then also it was you just don't have that structure of support. So my parents were very much about get on with it, kiddo.
Wow.
Um, yeah, like I don't want to hear the complaining, or I don't want to, I don't like if you want to do something, you got to do it. And whatever your health condition is kind of irrelevant, which, which I didn't see as a negative thing at the time.
Right.
Yeah, I just was like, okay, this is all, I'm all in to get better, you know. And then I was in chronic pain off and on. You know, you still, with anybody who lives with chronic pain, then sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better, sometimes you're okay, sometimes you're not. And it was hard for me in the sense that I'm a very reliable person, or I like to think I am, and consistent. And it was hard to not be that way because your health wasn't always there for you. So yeah, so at the age of 10, after lots of hospital visits and medical tests and all that stuff, a couple of doctors said, well, we don't know, and it's probably best if you just go home and die. And I just thought that was ridiculous,
Lisa,
right?
and how old were you at the time?
10. I was around 10. It was, yeah. And that was the year that I discovered the Power of Positive Thinking book around that age. And then two other books, The Lord of the Rings, which I
Okay.
absolutely immersed myself in, because for me it was spiritual teaching. It wasn't just a fantasy escape, because there's profound quotes and spiritual teaching in Lord of the Rings if you look for it, and also the Little House on the Prairie books. So those were my three guides when I was young. I wanted to be Caroline Ingalls, not Laura, but I wanted to be Caroline Ingalls because I loved her sense of self, her grace, her ability to have presence. You know, I didn't put it in those words, you know, when I was young. But so it was books. It was books that got me centered, connected, and conscious, and also dreams. I've always been guided by spiritual dreams. And everyone else in my life did the best they could in the circumstances, including the doctors and family. But it really was, there's that quote from, I don't know if it's the poet Robert Blake, or I'm not quite sure the
Robert
name.
Frost?
Maybe I'm not, William Blake or something. I'm not sure.
Oh,
Anyways, the quote is, if it is to be, it is up to me. And when I journeyed then from the age of 10 to 29 at my Saturn return in astrology, which I didn't know was at that time, that was when I went into my deep cocoon of healing at age around 29. And it was do or die. I was dying, and I died twice actually in my little apartment, and had near-death experiences, and came back and had the life review and traveled through the tunnel of light and everything. And
can you go back on that? Because did that happen to you twice?
yeah, I've had two official near-death experiences,
Wow.
and in my cocoon of healing, and since then, and I mean before as well, but really in that I had hundreds of out-of-body experiences where I was pure consciousness in the universe, no form, just in bliss. And now at 61, I'm starting to live that every day. Like, it's not just something an experience that I have. It's an aspect of each of us that exists within us that when we're ready, we can manifest on earth.
Did you spontaneously heal? Is that because I read Anita Morjani's book? I don't know if you're familiar,
Yes.
Dying to Be Me. And not to give, spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
she's on her deathbed, basically dying of cancer. And she crosses over and she's basically told, this is not your time. She comes back to her body and her body spontaneously healed, and she was riddled with tumors. So my question for you is, when you had those out of body experiences and your body was giving out, what happened to your organs when you came back?
Well, my organs are my organs. So the gift is that I have deformed organs, right? And so I have a very narrow uh, window within which I can operate physically. But that's the gift, because if I deviate from my own protocol of support, then I will physically collapse. But I've strengthened what I have. So I always like to say, let's focus on what we have,
Right.
anything in life, and build on that, and not focus on the loss or what could have been or what I thought should have been, um, or life isn't fair or whatever. I mean, those are healthy emotions, but then let's focus on what we have. So this is the body that I was born with. And then I strengthened it and repaired it to the ability that I could, and everybody has their own journey with that. And so now, I'm super functional and can put in 20-hour days and work on my farm and outwork the 20-year-olds on the farm with endurance. I wouldn't say I can lift as
Right.
heavy as a 30-year-old guy, but so my quest to have basic functional health was such a deep quest
Right.
that it expanded my life in infinite ways, because that was my gateway. I always say, our greatest challenge or our chronic health condition in this case is your gateway to your greatest empowerment, because our greatest challenge is what we have to go deep into and master for ourselves. And so, yes, my organs are still my organs, but they're highly functional. And I'm aware that they're my weakest link. So one of my ancient universal principles that I live by is that you're only as strong as your weakest link in the sense of your awareness.
Right.
So I know what my weakest link is. It's my physical health. And as long as I support that, everything else flows. If I don't support my weakest link, then everything will really collapse quite quickly. So to answer your question, in my cocoon of healing, I had spirits come to me. I was guided by dreams to do Reiki, so to receive Reiki. And there was a Reiki center down the street from me, which I was too weak to walk to. I mean, I couldn't even walk to it at the time. But then I made it. I made it down the hill and made it into the Reiki center. And then the woman who ran that Reiki center encouraged me to learn Reiki, but I already had dreams, telling me to learn Reiki and white light coming out of my hands. And it didn't really mean much to me at the time. I was just kind of wrote it down and said, okay. And then I had dreams guiding me to macrobiotic healing foods and actually telling me to go to Boston to see the macrobiotic forefather, Michio Kushi. So I was very much engaged and committed to a very detailed macrobiotic healing program and cooking, which was very difficult when you're weak and sick and you can't stand. But I did it slowly, one step at a time. And I had Reiki. And getting to your point, I had nightly, daily dreams, out of body experiences where white beings were adding energy to me.
Wow.
And the white beings would draw lines on my body and take my organs out of my body and show me my organs and then put them back. And I didn't try for that to happen. I would just fall asleep and have those experiences. And that's when horses came. Some of those beings were horses.
Wow. So do you have any idea where they came from? Are they angelic beings or extraterrestrial, or it doesn't really matter? Just curious.
I don't know. I think they're from all different dimensions. And at the time, I was just learning about the Pleiadians. And I'm not that familiar with the Pleiadians, but when I started doing professional work, I was guided then to leave my policy. I was an environmental policy analyst and a mental health therapist. So I was guided to leave that through dreams. And when my first clients that I met in a bookstore and we just chatted for 5 or 6 hours, and then he waited, I think 2 or 3 months for me to get insurance and a treatment table and everything, right? Like, talk about, the universe guiding you. He looked at me one day and he said, "You're a Pleiadian." And I said, "What's a Pleiadian? I don't know what that is." So I don't know. I just know they're white beings. And they would morph into a humanoid shape and they'd morph into a horse shape. And I hadn't been thinking about horses. So it's not like I was projecting, my desire, right, into the dream. And horses have been pillars of light spirit guides for me ever since.
So, because you grew up on a farm, did you grow up with horses?
Well, we had some hobby horses when I was very, very young, but they weren't really a part of our life on the farm. When I was a little bit older, my parents unfortunately sold them, and when you're a kid, you can't control that, right? When
Right.
you're 7, 8, your parents decide what they're going to do. And I didn't really think about horses after that. I loved all animals, and we didn't have a livestock farm. We had cash crop, but we
Okay.
weren't farmers. We rented out the fields. So
Okay.
it was a nice country experience. It was a nice country experience. My dad had a little bit of livestock when he retired, and then he sold them. And then we had cash crop fields and a nice ravine where I found my essence. I would build forts in nature and connect with the animal spirits and the elements and a circle of stones and meditate. But I didn't know that, right? I didn't know that I was doing that. So I had a nice country experience, but we weren't like a horse family or involved in the horse world.
It's so fascinating to me when you talk about that because most of my friends who have horses grew up with horses, a lot of them, because it becomes part of them. And, I've been around horses, not a lot, but they're quite intimidating. They're big and they're a lot of work between, the hay and, making sure they're ridden and, all of that. With your and I know I don't even know if I want to use the words limitations, but with your physical situation, what brought you to suddenly want to own horses and
Dreams.
connect with them?
So I started having dreams and in my cocoon of healing, and they spoke to me very specifically.
Wow.
And then they helped guide me out of my cocoon of healing. And they were some of the beings that were sending me energy. So, yes, there was a combination of spontaneous spiritual healing from multidimensional sources. Um, but then I was also very actively doing like cooking 8, 10 hours a day, chewing my food for 4 or 5 hours a day,
Wow.
giving myself Reiki and, shiatsu, self shiatsu. And if I was well enough, I'd go to the Reiki center. But but the horses have been with me ever since. And I guess they were before, but it wasn't until I was open enough, right, to identify them that they became part of my existence. And then it was a few years later when I was better and I realized I was doing holistic healing work, not just as a hobby, but this is it, right? This is what I'm guided to do. That I had a message to go to a trail ride ranch. And I was visiting my father in the hospital. He was sick and dying in the hospital in Toronto. And I had this message to go out in rush hour traffic on a Friday afternoon to this ranch. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just followed the message. And I opened up a phone book, like a real phone book with paper.
This, yeah, that they're like this big now.
I
Like
opened
I'm
up a
like,
phone book and there it was. There was the ranch. And they said, well, our last trail ride is at, I don't know what it was, 7 p.m. It's daylight still. And I thought, how am I going to make it there? It's rush hour in Toronto. It's like Los Angeles, right? And I somehow made it there. I didn't have my own vehicle. I had to borrow a vehicle or whatever. And that's where I met Trigger. And that was the beginning of my journey rescuing horses and bringing my horse spirit family home. So when horses are meant to come to me, I'm told in dreams a family member is returning.
so when you say family member, because there's belief around reincarnation that humans just come back as humans, and there's those who think it's humans come back as animals. So when you say family returning, do you see them as human souls?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, they're horses.
Yep.
I
And
don't
when you
see them, I don't relate them at all to humans.
Okay. So you, from the standpoint of family member coming home, is that more like lifetimes with these horses?
I don't know. That's just the message that's told to me.
Okay.
I have
And
no idea. I don't know what it means.
and then who was Trigger for people? And you say you met Trigger. Is that, what
Horse.
significance is the horse to
Yeah,
you?
Trigger was a senior horse who was in a trail ride place in a ranch outside of Toronto. And he started coming to me in dreams after I went to that first visit at the ranch. I don't even think I met Trigger at that ranch. And he was desperate for me to take him away. And I didn't know at the time that he was destined to go to slaughter a year later. So
Wow.
sometimes, not all, but sometimes the horse, the summer camp, horse people, they'll buy horses at auction that are already, unwanted or maybe have an ailment. And then they often just work them to death and put them on bute, like a pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory drug, and until they wear out, and then they send them to slaughter, which I didn't know. I didn't know
Wow.
all that, right? People
Wow.
just know all that. Not everybody, but it's not uncommon for summer camp horses to be slaughtered at the end of the season. So I didn't know that, but Trigger was insistent. Trigger activated my spiritual connection to myself to save his life and also mine. I was still healing. And I actually discuss my journey with Trigger in the book Evolving on Purpose, Co-Creating with the Divine. And my chapter is called The Divinity of Horses. So if you go to my website, aponahealing.com/ranch/divinity of horses, then my chapter is there. Soon I'll be making the chapter available on its own.
Yeah.
But that's through Katie Carey, wonderful Katie Carey of
Yeah.
Soul Valley Publishing. And I've done two phenomenal books with her as a co-author. And Trigger started me on my journey of honoring horses as high spiritual beings, as divine beings, which we talk about. I talk about in the Zero Limits movie, and guiding me. He's the logo. Trigger is my logo for Epona Healing. That's Trigger's, came from Trigger's face, guiding me and all my horses and everything that I do, like literally everything that I do. And there are humanoid figures as well, for sure. But to me, they all merge as they're all the same.
That's so interesting. So now, were you living on a piece of property that was large enough for you to bring horses on, or did you, when you rescued Trigger, where did Trigger come to live?
Well, it was quite challenging. At the time, I was at our family farm. We had that family farm that I grew
Right.
up on. And my father was not receptive at all. Even though our barns were empty, there were no animals. And we had a big, beautiful bank barn from the 1800s. And, the fencing had to be repaired. So I was able to finally convince the kill buyer to sell him to me because they're private property. And he didn't understand why I wanted to buy. I didn't know Trigger was blind at the time, but an old blind horse. And so I found a spot for him, like literally, like a 1 minute drive, a 15-minute walk up the road. There was a horse stable, boarding facility. So I found a spot for him there. And then I had to be very creative and with the family members to welcome Trigger home. But when you're on a mission, nothing stops you.
No.
Like nothing was going to stop me from healing my chronic illnesses. And nothing was going to stop me from bringing Trigger home. And that's the sense of self. That's the inner knowing that when you embrace the opportunities of growth and change in life, you cultivate such a strong sense of self and inner knowing that the circumstances that are around are inconsequential to you. You literally have a zero limits mindset because I don't care what somebody tells me I can or cannot do. Only I know what I'm going to do, and I
Right.
need help. I need help on the spiritual realm. I need functional help. I need all sorts of help. It's not that I'm delusional and think I can do it on my own, but that you are going to go forward. And all of the naysayers, all of the difficult challenges are just whatever, they're inconsequential. And that's why I love what I call Taoist non-attachment, and you call it neutrality. It's you're
Right.
same thing,
Yes.
right? We're doing the same thing. Is that you're neutral, you're not attached, you're committed, you're focused, you know what you're supposed to do. You feel it, so you allow the feelings to move through you and you recognize them through experience that this is a frequency. It's like a frequency, a vibration
Right.
in your body that is moving you forward. And then you're given signs that you're on the right track. And then you listen and observe and then you validate. You know, it's what I call my love method. Listen, observe, validate, empower
Right.
yourself and others without telling people what to do. You're just listening, observing, validating, and empowering. So there were challenges for sure. The kill bar wouldn't even sell me trigger.
Wow.
So, and then I went to the ranch and the girls would make fun of me that, you know, I hadn't put a halter on a horse since I was 6 or 7 or something, right? And it's like when I learned hoop trimming and I was terrified of hoop trimming because I'd seen what damage can be done if you make a mistake. I had a hoof trimmer cripple one of my horses, and that was a whole healing journey we were on. And when I took a hoop trimming course, you know, I was made fun of that I was too cautious and we didn't do live horses, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you know who you are and you know what you want.
That's so beautiful. So, you know, when you're talking about neutrality, I just had like a personal experience around this that I think people might understand hearing this. I was always, I always loved to laugh, and I have a very distinct laugh, and sometimes it's irritating to some people, and then I have other people who love it. But it was something as a child that I was told that I needed, it wasn't ladylike, and I needed to change my laugh. And I was recently on a podcast and we were all laughing a lot. And we got all, you know, at the end, I was just looking at the comments and everyone was like, oh my God, this was so much fun. Have those three together again. And it was going on and on. And then there was one comment and it said, oh my God, that cackle. And the old Lisa would have broken down and the old Lisa would have been like, what? You know, really let it affect me. And instead I was like, it's not about me. It's not about me. Like I could genuinely be
Chill, just got
neutral.
chill.
And I
Yes.
sat and I looked at myself and I was so proud of that moment. Even though I've had other ones, but that was a deep childhood wound. And it sounds silly because it's about a laugh, but it was a big one for me. And so for me to sit back and observe it and say, and I was waiting, I'm like, why aren't I upset? I was waiting for the tears to come. I was waiting for it all to come, and it didn't. And I was like, and I'm still walking around in shock about it. It's really funny because I'm like, no, there's nothing there. And I'm like, that's when you know you've totally healed whatever that is,
Yes.
and you don't own it anymore because it was never about me.
A
Can't
thousand
change that.
percent. Thank you for sharing that. That's a magnificent experience for everyone to hear. It's what I call the 333 principle. So as you heal, grow, and evolve, and you commit to owning your power, let's say you commit to know thyself, then what used to take 3 months to process, or let's say 3 years, sometimes we
Yeah.
hang on, used to take 3 years, becomes 3 months, becomes 3 weeks, becomes 3 days, becomes 3 seconds.
Yep.
And suddenly it that there's no attachment, there's
Yeah.
no resonance. Then it's exactly as you said, then we know we fully healed, we fully turned lead into gold, we fully arrived at a place where that aspect is inconsequential to who I am and how I live, right? And how I think about myself. And that is a natural, inevitable process when we commit in whatever modality or way we want to
Right.
our own personal empowerment. I call it reclaiming sovereignty.
And it is. It's about being sovereign. And it doesn't matter what other people think because you're not going outside of yourself. You know, it's all about the internal work. So I'm on pins and needles here. So how did you get Trigger? Because I was like, no one would let you have this poor horse, and I'm sitting here going, how did you get that? What magic, what miracle did you perform to get this horse away from, all of these people?
Well, it was challenging. It took a long time, and I had to really use my inner guidance and navigate very carefully because his life was on the line. It was like a loved one being held hostage and they're threatening his life. And I don't remember all the details, but I had to negotiate with he's called a horse dealer, but he's a kill buyer. I mean, he buys
Right,
horses from auction and he uses them for summer camp, and then he would send them to slaughter, direct,
right,
like direct, ship direct to slaughter. And so I couldn't really make him angry, right? Because
right.
he doesn't have to. So I wasn't bowing down to him, but I had to go into my own high level of discernment. And that was part of Trigger's teaching for me. Trigger taught me, he activated so much for me at that time because I was still coming out of my cocoon. I wasn't really fully engaged in the world. And everything with my father at the farm, with the managers of the riding stable, and finding out he was blind and not being allowed to visit him because of certain circumstances. Everything about my helping, we use the word rescue, but it's just a term, right?
Right.
We're helping horses have a better life and hopefully prevent them from being unnecessarily killed. But every aspect, from him coming to me in dreams, I remember I started doing yoga, Bikram yoga, which I totally loved. And at the end of the yoga, you're sweating and you're lying there and you can feel the energy moving through your body. And I could feel Trigger in my heart. I could
Wow.
feel Trigger in my heart. And he was sending, I call it an SOS, because he wanted his life to be saved. But he was also sending an SOS to me. And there are horses around the world who are sending an SOS to their soul human. But if you can't hear them, if you can't hear the signal, then the connection's not going to happen. And this is so why personal development, healing, growth at this time is so important, because we're in oneness. We're in oneness with life. So eventually I don't know what I did. I held the space for the horse dealer and negotiated with him and had to hear all the stories about how Trigger was his favorite horse, but he used to whip him on ice to perform for commercials. He's his best movie and commercial horse, and he was so great, but you just have to whip him and he would walk on ice, and you just have to say nothing.
Yep.
There's a time and a place for everything, right? There's a
Right.
time to fully express, and there's a time to be silent, to honor the process that you're in. And that's the high level of discernment. At the time, I was trying to figure it out, right? And then he signed the papers over to me for Trigger, and that was the beginning of the rest of my life.
Wow. So
And the
how
rest
long ago was that you finally took Trigger?
About 25 years. It's probably about
Wow.
25 years ago. Yeah. And I had no money. I was coming out of my cocoon of healing. I had 3 university degrees. I had phenomenal job experience. I had job offers at high level United Nations and high level NGOs and government. And I wasn't well enough. And then my dreams guided me onto this path, which I thought was just going to be for 3 months, and then and then maybe a year. And then 3 years into it, I kind of realized, yeah, okay,
This was
like
it.
this is, yeah. But I had, when I was guided to help Trigger, which was helping myself, right? Um, there were no funds, and I was lucky because I had always worked through university, so I didn't have any university debt, but I didn't have any money either, right? And then I got in the mail, I forget how it happened, I got my first credit card with a line of credit, And I'm not suggesting that people go into debt, but I'll never forget my first purchases on that credit card were buying Trigger from the kill buyer, paying for the transportation for Trigger, the hauler, getting supplies for him, paying for the board, doing renovations at the farm, at our family farm, so he could come home and, have running water. That was all done on debt with no income coming in.
Wow. You talk about divine. So now, how long did you have Trigger with you?
Some 7, 8, almost 8 years. And then he
Wow.
left, excuse me, and then he left um, just suddenly. See, sorry. I have a drug. Can't talk.
Take your time. No, I'm in awe of your
Yeah.
fortitude. And here's the thing, because I learned
Oh,
that
I
lesson.
can't.
I'm sorry, what?
It's just dry. We have our wood stove on.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, take your
Yeah.
time. No, when you talked about being able to, that it's a very high level of being able to listen to someone talk about Trigger and what was done and know not to react, because most people would have a visceral reaction and
Yeah, you
have
do.
and would have alienated him, and then Trigger would have died, right? And
Yeah.
people would find that, they did the right thing because, this person deserved that. When you are able to just hear, because from everyone's perspective, they're right?
That's
From
right.
his world, of the way he sees the world, he doesn't see that there's anything wrong. And so that's the important thing to see, even though in your eyes you're seeing something that's so egregious, but from his life and his experience, there's nothing wrong with what he does. So to just sit and hold space for him without him feeling judged, allowed Trigger to come to you. That is a huge, huge lesson. I didn't want to bypass that.
No, thank you for bringing that up. I'm not having an emotional response. I'm having a physical response to our cookwood stove. It's just so dry in here. Um, yeah, and that thank you for raising awareness around that, because that is, as conscious leaders of our lives in the middle of a paradigm shift, that's our own focused
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah.
And we can share what we believe for sure, and we can join marches or and whatever, but there are moments when you use that discernment, and that's being neutral. that's
Yes.
that's how it's not attachment. That's understanding the greater um the greater mission. And it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to, it's a big thing, in the horse world, where there's a lot of division in the horse world about paying kill buyers for horses. And I'm in the camp that if I was a horse that was being, held against my will and being sent to slaughter, I'd want someone to help me. And other people who run rescues think that's horrible. They think that I'm financing, or people like me are financing kill buyers and just helping more horses go to slaughter. But the reality is, the kill buyers see horses as livestock. So whether it's a cow, pig, chicken,
Right.
sheep, or horse, they're in all of it usually. They're just not making money from, and what are they making? They're making an extra couple $100 or a few hundred. It's like, so anyways, in the horse world, it's exactly what you said. There's a lot of charged emotion about beliefs, and that's what you're specialist in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
About beliefs. And that so I recently saw a post about a horse rescue, and she said that she was going to rescue this one donkey, and then they couldn't, the kill buyer outbid them at auction. And so then she asked if she could buy the donkey back. And the kill buyer said, well, yeah, but you're going to have to pay me more. I mean, that's to be expected. And she said, no, I won't pay $1 more. And she said it was heartbreaking to send the donkey to slaughter. But in my circle, we would never do that, right?
Right.
That's not our belief. Our belief that the life of the donkey is worth infinitely more. It's priceless. You can't put a price on the
Right.
life of that donkey. So if I have to pay an extra $500 or $600, then I will. If that's what I'm guided to do. If I can't look at that donkey in the eye and say you weren't worth an extra $200 or $300. So you went to Mexico and were tortured alive and slaughtered. I can't live like that.
Right. Right. So where do you get the funding for all of this? Do you have a nonprofit? How do you supplement, the rescue?
I'm in service to humanity. I have been a healer, a coach for 30 years.
Okay, so it's not a nonprofit. You don't fundraise. You don't do anything. This is your own personal message. Your own
I haven't
personal
had
mission.
time.
Yeah.
I haven't had time to set up all the, a board of directors to be a registered charity and
Right.
all of that. When I moved to this property, we were renovating for an almost 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, with my own money. I
So
think
this is your own personal money. So that's
all my
extraordinary.
own money. It's all my
Wow.
own money, and it all, every day I live with the discernment of I don't know when I'm going to be making more money. I just know I will because that's my mission to help humanity, to help horses, and to have built out my Epona Healing Ranch here in beautiful Eastern Ontario and Rideau Lakes. And I was guided by dreams to be
Right.
here. Oh, yeah.
And
No, I
that's
don't have any partners, business partners, or I haven't had time.
amazing. Amazing. Because I noticed in my own life, and I'm sure you experience this as well, when you're in alignment, everything just flows. And people can hear that as just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it is a true way of living. Like when you are in that place of neutrality, when you are in that place of just being and flow and doing what you're supposed to do, everything just starts to show up. The money shows up, everything. I found in my life magic. It's the
Yeah.
zero limits.
It is zero limits. That's why we're in the movie.
Yeah,
Because we live zero limits. It's a limitless life. And I had always used that expression. So when I heard about the movie, I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And there's a trust and faith in yourself and in the universe. So if I ever waited for some sort of certainty or security, all my horses I have would have been sent to slaughter. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing now. It's the
yeah,
same thing when I started my healing arts practice, around the time of Trigger, I had no money.
yeah. And
But I never saw a client as a means to my financial needs. I separated that. That's what I teach my students. Right?
so you work with people of all different backgrounds, and you also teach them to work with the horses, correct? Like when you're working with people, what does that look like? Because there's a woman I live in Vermont, and there's lots of horse farms here, and there was a woman who worked with executives, and I went through this experience where we all had to stand in the ring and use our energy to move a horse without saying anything. It was just your presence of getting the horse to move. And I was blown away at how people could actually do that because people are standing there in front of the horse going, come on, move. And the horse is just standing there. And then someone could just stand there and send a message and be in alignment. And then the horse would do what it was asking them to do.
Well, yeah, that's magnificent. And equine therapy, equine assisted learning, I mean, it's all growing and there's many different approaches to it. Some people offer riding, some people offer obstacle courses. We do basically meditation, standing in silence, stillness, and presence with the horses and energy. And I offer equine assisted therapy sessions, which are coaching sessions where the horse is involved. So there's a questionnaire to fill out. You understand what it is you want to work on, and then you choose a horse, or a horse chooses you, and then you come back and you do the work. But horses are still really a small part of what I do professionally. And for 30 years, I was a specialist in, and I still am, in helping clients resolve their chronic health conditions and chronic stress. So I've been involved in expanding that. I've been guided to expand that into helping clients identify their imbalances in life, hopefully before they have a diagnosis of terminal cancer. So I specialized in working with clients with terminal cancer for many years with my Epona healing method of really, I would say intense, but really consistent Reiki, like adding the energy every single day in the old Toeo Takata model of Reiki. And healing foods, if someone was interested in that, and coaching. So my Epona healing method is Reiki, healing foods, and coaching. And then the coaching is expanded into mastering your inner power with chronic stress, burnout, preventing chronic illness, creating pathways forward with greater self-awareness. So I have four pathways in Epona healing. There is the chronic illness, resolving your chronic health conditions. I call turn limitation. So it's okay to use the word limitation. Turn limitation into liberation. And I have on my eponahealing.com website, the four pathways are there. And then the high performance wellness coaching specifically relating to chronic stress and burnout, and understanding what I call the capacity principle, understanding your capacity mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, so that you don't live beyond your capacity and collapse, but you expand your capacity from a place of inner strength and power. And then I have healing with horses when we have healing retreats and equine therapy. And then I have cottage rental. We have an Airbnb. There's a second cottage, a lovely, cute cordwood cottage on the property. And I host retreats there. So private retreats, corporate retreats, group retreats. And I'm finishing building that out on my website. So soon I'll have everything I do privately, one-on-one, soon will be posted for public access.
Oh, I was thinking about terminal and chronic illness. And with chronic illness, I have run into this, and I'm wondering how you deal with this. Sometimes when someone has something for so long, it defines them.
That's right.
And then they don't know who they are without it.
That's right.
So when they have an opportunity to let go of it, like how do you step someone through? Because sometimes they're on disability, so the money's coming in as long as they're on disability. If they suddenly heal, how do you help them with their mindset and getting through, like, now you're empowered, now you have to take care of yourself?
Well, they have to be ready for that.
Right. Yeah.
That really has nothing to do with me. I mean, when someone's ready for that, then I'm happy to support them, and it's a very powerful process of growth and transformation. But I've worked with clients in that situation, and that's their life path, and that's perfectly okay. They're not ready to have they're not ready to go to that next level without their disability check, which is
Right.
totally fine. I mean, that's their comfort in this lifetime. So I don't usually, I mean, occasionally that might come up, but for 30 years of supporting clients like that, they don't usually seek me out.
That's true, because if they don't want to get better, they're not going to get better. So,
Yeah,
what type of examples of chronic illness of again, you're not, whatever disclaimers you need to say.
yeah, yeah.
But
Well, I was guided, everything's been guided. I was guided to work with clients with all sorts of chronic illness, adrenal fatigue or MS, all sorts of things. But really, I specialized in cancer for many, many, many years. And it was just the universe sending me clients. So I learned a lot from those experiences. And with my opponent healing method, when people are committed, and it's not, you don't have to do just that method. You can also do whatever else you want holistically.
right.
You could also do chemo and radiation. I work with clients with that. I mean, everyone has their own unique path. But when someone commits to the opponent healing method of Reiki, healing foods, and coaching, then I had 100% terminal cancer remission.
Wow.
Tumors dissolve,
Wow.
tumors dissolve.
That's incredible.
Yeah, clients that were given 2 to 4 months to live, inoperable tumor, uh, 6, 8 months later, there's no sign that there was even a tumor. There's no scar tissue. Like, one client took the test results uh, to multiple medical facilities with high-level cancer experts, and they said, if you didn't tell me you had a terminal inoperable tumor in that location, I wouldn't even know you ever had one. That
Yeah.
is the power of deep healing.
Yes. Absolutely. So, in the layers, are you working physical, mental, emotional, spiritual in your techniques that you use, or it depends on the individual? Like, how do you know where to go with that particular client?
Well, ask the client. Ask the
There you
client. So,
go.
so,
There you
so,
go.
so we meet the client where they're at, just like horses meet us where we're at, right? Like
Yeah.
it's and because we have no attachment. And it's so I have my system that is always flexible, but the system is regular Reiki sessions. You can do it without the healing food because everybody has their own food, preferences. It's really Reiki and coaching.
Yeah.
And then as you go through 2 hour Reiki sessions 2 times a day, not always, but that's a more intensive protocol, then naturally things are going to come up. Increased awareness,
Right.
releasing. Suddenly you're not angry at your father anymore. And then we have a dialogue about that in the coaching sessions. So the
Yeah.
Reiki and the coaching are really a beautiful, harmonious system to move forward with the changes in your physical state and your frequency, which then are mental, emotional, spiritual. It's all energy. And then the awareness of those changes guided by the client.
No, it's extraordinary. I'm actually writing a book right now called "We Are Quantum," and I talk about the idea that we can heal ourselves. This is
Yeah.
this is all about our ability to heal ourselves, but we have to believe it.
You have to believe it and you have to want it. You have to know
Yes.
it. And it's okay if you don't. I mean, it's okay if you don't. That's that journey as well. I don't know what someone's soul path is. I say to my clients, I'm here to support you. And I say with help, health, energy, and lasting power. I don't know what your soul path is. And so if I am in your life for 2 weeks or for 2 years or for 20 years, I'm honored to hold that sacred space. Uh, so we don't know what the soul is meant to experience in this lifetime, but we can support that journey without attachment, with being neutral, as you
Yeah.
say. And then anything is possible. That's the zero limits mindset. That's the zero. We have to have a declaration of ownership of self. That's my zero limits declaration that I didn't come on the planet to be half alive. I came on the planet to be whole and free. And that is my birthright. What is your birthright? Like, what is your
Right.
zero limits declaration? We have to ask ourselves. And then we feel the frequency move through us. And then we walk through the thorny bushes. It doesn't matter if I get scraped up or beat up. I just
Yeah.
keep going.
What an extraordinary message. And, I love the movie Zero Limits for many reasons. And one was the fact that I've gotten to get to know you and the other cast members. One of the things that that frustrates me is that we only had a few minutes to get to know each one of these amazing people in the movie, and I highly recommend that people watch it if you haven't. There's some really amazing stories, but we only get a tiny bit of people. So, here's an opportunity to really get more of Lydia's story and get to know her as quite an extraordinary zero limits being. And hearing your story just really warms my heart as someone who's really a fighter, someone who's really, said, I want this life, and really has fought for it.
And I
Just
want it in this
yeah,
lifetime. That's what
yes,
I declared that in this lifetime, I wanted to know what it's like to be whole and free. That was my journey, and it
yeah,
continues to be. And as I said, I have to say now, it's really amazing. Like to wake up, to come through the multidimensional realms when you're waking up, feeling blissed out, and it doesn't matter what's going on around
yeah.
because I am whole and I am free.
Thank you for that, because that's the key. With all this mayhem that's going on in the world, the most important thing for you is to shut all that noise off. Because unless you're actually out there as a politician working there, how is this impacting you other than stressing you out? You want to be aware, but it's also important right now energetically, because we are beacons. We are energetic beacons. And
Exactly.
by you being at peace and you being in that place of, non-attachment or neutrality is healing the world.
A
And for
hundred percent.
helping people understand that you are actually actively helping heal the world by healing yourself.
1,000%. We're all one. In ancient teachings, the idea that separation was considered the greatest cause of suffering.
Yeah.
And we can be activated by external events and guided, but it all begins from within. I mean, that's a cliche, but it really does. And we are each a pillar of light. We are each that beacon of energy that's connected with all. So even if I do something that maybe doesn't have the result I had hoped for, or whatever, it shifted, I created an energetic imprint. Trigger and I created an energetic imprint for others to follow, right?
Yes.
That matters. That's an
Absolutely.
infinite frequency in the universe that creates the fabric of the universe. You matter. We each matter. There's no insignificant action. So we value that. And it doesn't matter if there's external accolades or not. There may be, there may not be, but it's the personal empowerment, it's the reclaiming of sovereignty that is going to guide humanity into 2100 and beyond.
Right. Wow. Well, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I got to
Good.
learn even more about how amazing you are. And I'll have your website and your links below so that people, if they want to contact you. Anything else or you have anything coming up or anything that people should know about, or have we covered everything?
Well, it's just been a beautifully engaging conversation, Lisa. Thank you. It went by so quickly.
It
And
did.
all day. We're going to have a retreat or something for everyone on navigating through these uncertain times and how to step into your power. But thank you. Yeah, I have programs coming up that I'm releasing. I have the High Performer Secret program, which is my capacity principle, and it's a mindset. It's a
Yeah.
mindset program. How to ask yourself 4 questions throughout the day to stay centered, connected, and conscious so you don't burn out so you can expand your capacity without being depleted. We have retreats. We have Airbnb. I have my one-on-one coaching work and healing work. So stay tuned for the website. It's up, it's running, and there'll be more posted.
Now, I love that, especially about the burnout work, because it's so easy to override your own instincts and then you crash and then you're no good. So the learning to tap into those little taps that you're getting, like you're overdoing it. I
Yeah.
wish I had listened to that years ago. I'm much more attuned to it now, but I was notorious for crashing and burning and then resting and then back up again.
Well, we all are. I was the same way because we it wasn't there wasn't the information available. There wasn't social media. I mean, I found the book, The Power of Positive Thinking,
Yeah.
in the country schoolhouse. And that's how I developed my capacity principle for me when I was healing. And then I started sharing it with clients. And it's that awareness. It's that most fundamental, making self-awareness a priority and valuing that relationship to yourself. That's your inner navigating system that only you have
Yeah.
that refined relationship with, right? And then we know when to say yes, when to say no, um, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. And then it's kind of inconsequential, as we were saying, that if things don't work out exactly as we want, we know that other opportunities will appear and
Right.
that we're in our flow.
So that to me is setting proper boundaries for yourself, and that is to me self-love.
Yes.
And so a lot of people don't know what self-love is. That is an example of it.
Yeah,
And that
honoring
is
yourself.
about, yeah, it's about learning to say no.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, well, Lydia, again, thank you so much, and I look forward to having another conversation, or maybe we'll collaborate on something.
Yes, I'd love to invite you to my Conscious Leader Circle as a guest speaker, and maybe we'll do a retreat someday. We're not too far from each other.
I know. I would love that. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Lisa. You're amazing.
Ah, thank you. I feel the same about you.